Now, obviously, we've talked a lot about trade rumors within the Winnipeg Jets organization right now because there's a lot of media attention on this organization, on whether or not they're going to address the concerns about the blue line moving forward, and whether or not they're going to actually go out there and make a trade at the deadline or a little bit before that to really help push the Winnipeg Jets over the end. We've talked a lot on this channel about these rumors. We've talked about how David Savard could be an option the Jets could look at. We've also talked about how Mattias Ekholm could also be a very, very, very viable option for the Winnipeg Jets to pursue if they did look to go down this road of making a trade before the playoffs start and obviously before that trade deadline on the 12th. But I want to talk to you guys about something that is a little bit more of a newer, kind of not talked about trade option that the Jets have. I've briefly talked about it in some videos, but I want to kind of make a more fleshed out video talking about this because obviously there's a lot of different ways the Winnipeg Jets can go out and address the concerns about their defensive core moving forward into the playoffs this year, but I think there's a really cheap option waiting out in the deserts of Arizona that could really help the Jets moving forward. And not to mention, he's going to cost half the price of what it would cost, or not even half the price, let me be honest. He'll probably cost a fraction of what it would take to get a guy like Ekholm or even David Savard to that extent at the deadline. I think he would be a very good option. Even though he's having a down year, he's been a very consistent defenseman, and I think it could be really reliable to have a veteran guy like this who's very reliable in our own end, and I think we could get him for pretty cheap, similar to what the Montreal Canadiens just paid for the Buffalo Sabres to acquire Eric Stahl. So I think we could get something around that type of deal. And the player I'm talking about is Alex Goligoski. Now, Alex Goligoski obviously hasn't been the greatest player the last few years, but recently Murat of The Athletic has made an article talking about whether or not the Winnipeg Jets could go out and get Alex Goligoski and why he could be the ideal fit for Winnipeg and also a very good price point as well. He goes on to talk obviously about the trade and whatnot, but what I think makes sense here is the fact that if Arizona is willing to retain salary for his final year of his contract, which he's currently making $5.47 million, that could really help, the Winnipeg Jets out obviously. And also the big thing that there is also a really good aspect about this trade, and I've talked about it in the past, and even in this offseason, prior to the start, I talked about how Alex Goligoski could potentially be an option for the Jets because of the fact that the Arizonas, due to their, penalties for all their illegal actions they took at the draft with the combines and scouting, they don't have a lot of really good picks moving forward for the next couple of drafts. They're looking to really stockpile that cabinet and get back out there under this new management core and really develop more prospects and have more prospects just beat to their name. Like, look at their last draft with the guy they drafted in that with their last pick, that guy that was the horrible bully, right? Like, they need to really rebrand themselves, and they're going out there to do that, and they're having a hard time, but they're getting better at it, and they want to acquire picks, and it makes perfect sense that if the Arizona Coyotes are looking to retain a little bit of salary of Goligoski's last year, and the Jets could get him potentially for what Eric Stahl was, maybe a third and a fifth or something around the lines of that, because although Goligoski is on the decline and is right now 36 years old, if I'm not mistaken, or at least 35, I think his birthday's very soon, but nonetheless, he has been on the downcline. But look at last year, for example. Last year in 70 games, he had 4 goals, 28 assists for 32 points. Now, those are just the numbers on a team on the Coyotes that wasn't, the best team in the world, but he's, at that age, he still put up really good point numbers. This year in 35 games, 1 goal, 4 assists, 5 points, but the Arizona Coyotes just haven't been that good in general, at times with a lot of inconsistency in their own end, and I think that if he was brought into a team like the Jets, where he would have to maybe play with a little bit more stable guys compared to what they have out in the desert, I think it could work well for him, and he could provide a really good insurance back there at a really affordable price. So if that's the case and Cheveldayoff can't go out there and compete, because let's be real, if the Jets want to go out and get David Savard, if the Jets want to go out and get Mattias Ekholm, they're most likely going to be moving a first-round pick minimum and one of our better one of our better prospects. Which in theory, you could, when you look at the best prospects the Jets have, we're talking about Christian Vesalainen, we're talking about moving, even guys like Jansen Harkins, David Gustafsson being on the table, Sami Niku obviously being a piece that's been talked about a lot, and also even guys like Dylan Samberg, and even as crazy as it sounds, Ville Heinola's name has been tossed around about the type of players that Nashville would be willing to accept in a trade to for any team to go out and acquire Mattias Ekholm. And I just don't think that the Jets are stupid enough to give out Mattias Ekholm. I mean, to get Mattias Ekholm on one more year when they have to give up the price of Dylan Samberg and Ville Heinola. I think that would just be crazy. It doesn't make sense to me if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you see that as a trade option, but it requires such a massive part of this team's future moving forward. forward, you don't make that deal. So while it would be really nice to get Mattias Ekholm, and I have been a big supporter and a big advocate of the Jets going out and making a deal to acquire him, I think it could be very beneficial for this organization to look at the possible repercussions of trading good assets like that in the team's future if we don't succeed this year, even though it's a risk, and I understand that, while there are other guys on the option like Alex Goligoski who would be cheaper, and even to the extent of David Savard having a down year, and even guys like Brendan Montour who have been on the down low and not been the best players, but still really consistent guys, better than what we have, who we could acquire at a cheaper rate than what you would be paying to get a guy like Mattias Ekholm. So I think that although Mattias Ekholm would be an amazing get for this season and next season for the blue line and really help solidify us as one of the best top competing teams in the NHL, I think it just makes more sense in the long run if that Nashville really is asking for the cream of the crop, king's ransom of the best prospects and players and options that you can get from all the teams looking to get Ekholm. I don't know if they even trade Ekholm with the way they've been playing. So, that could be an option, that the window where that is closing rapidly. So guys like Goligoski could start to look a lot more appealing to Cheveldayoff if he wants to acquire a guy to really help push this team and help get them more solidified back there and push them to being a more competitive team from their own end of the ice and really become a better contender out of the guys. Because when you look at the Jets' defensive core, I've said this before, they are the least... they're pretty worse than any other team that the Jets would be going up against in the playoffs, in my opinion. So let's hope that they're able to get a trade that is a good trade for this organization now and in the future. And, let's just hope that something happens to make this team better moving forward. Because if the Jets can get anyone really to help bolster the blue line, I think this could be a really exciting postseason. But let me know your thoughts down about this type of trade option in the comment section below. Would you be opposed to getting Alex Goligoski at a cheap rate? Or would you rather the Jets go out and make a bigger splash for a guy like Ekholm, Savard, or whatnot? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, if you're a fan of the Winnipeg Jets, definitely consider subscribing. But more importantly, if you're a fan of hockey, regardless of the team you root for, definitely consider dropping a subscription and helping us push towards that 1K subscriber goal. As this would be really to help if you could show any support for the channel, and that's a really good way to help support the channel by helping progress us a little bit further to our goal. So thank you so much if you choose to subscribe. Peace, love, and positivity as always, guys. I will see you in the next video. Go Jets, go.